Hey, this is Jonathan Lunger of Hologramchat, and today I'm very lucky to have my friend John Rossi here, and I'm going to ask some questions about what exactly he does in terms of myofascial release and energy work. And thank you for coming here, John. I appreciate it. How you doing?
Thanks, John. Good to be here.
Awesome. So the questions I was going to ask were, what inspired you to get into this field, and who were your biggest mentors or guiding lights for this?
Well, it's a interesting question. I came to be in this kind of work because I got very badly injured. I was in a car accident when I was 14. I was hit by a car while walking, and then in 1995 I got rear-ended by a tractor trailer. So that set me up for a life of pain. And the doctors, the regular medical guys, kind of, well, their basic, prognosis could be summed up by saying, "Sucks to be you. Here's some pain meds." And I felt that there had to be something else, and I just kind of had a determination that I was going to try to find it. And so the first thing that happened is my sister took me to a guy that did Reiki. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but Reiki is a form of energy work that's pretty widely known. I had never really had any experience with it. I was like, Reiki schmakey, what the hell's that? She goes, he's an energy worker. Actually, she's an energy worker. And I'm like, I don't have a lamp that has to be rewired or anything. What do you mean energy worker? An electrician? So she said the key words, I'm going to pay for it, just relax and come with me. So I went, and this person had me on a table and just kind of put their hands on me very light, and I got very relaxed very quickly, and the next thing I knew, the hour was over. And she asked me the question, how do you feel? And I thought for a minute, and I've been in that place asking that question many times now since I've been a therapist. Many people don't know how to answer it, but I checked in with myself and I said, I feel better. I don't know what you did, but I feel better, and that's what I was looking for. So it started me asking a lot of questions and being interested, because I don't know what the hell you did. It didn't seem like you did anything. Shortly on the heels of that, I found a new chiropractor that was helping me out with some of my problems. And he had a therapist that came in there who was a massage therapist who did something called myofascial release. Again, I don't know what the hell that is, but when she did things, I started to get better. So those were the two, kind of seminal things. At the same time, around this time, I went to this, like an exposition, Mind, Body, Spirit Expo, where you had all kinds of healers and metaphysical teachers and all that kind of thing. And we saw this woman speak. Her name is Dorothy Neville Martin. This is kind of an answer of both questions in a way, because Dorothy became my teacher. I didn't know it at the time, but I wasn't looking for a teacher, but she was talking about the psycho-spiritual origins of what we call illness or disease and what happens in our body. And she was talking about heart disease, and she was saying, how some people like smoke cigarettes, they're overweight, and nothing ever happens to them, and they live to be like 85, 90 years old and a happy life. And then, Jim Fixx dies of a heart attack. You couldn't find a more cardiovascularly fit guy in the world, right? And she said it's not just the physical heart, the emotional heart and the psychological heart are involved as well. And she said something that keyed me, and my sister was with me at the time. She was actually looking for a teacher. But the woman said, you'll notice if people survive a heart attack, they often come through with more heart. They become more loving. They become more heart-centered people. And my father's nickname when he was a young man, before my mother and he hooked up, was Old Stoneface. Or they also called him Ancient, as a young man at 19. But years later, after he had had some heart problems, he began to soften. In his later years, his doctor was amazed because his heart was only functioning at 30%, and yet he lived 15 years past what he should have died in terms of the physiological heart. But he'd become an appreciator of everything. He loved everything. He was just amazed. And I used to sit on the porch with him. I remember one night we were sitting there, and he said, don't you love those squirrels? He was like watching the squirrels play. I'm like, Dad, you used to pay me to shoot them. He says, I didn't know nothing. He had become this different person. And when I heard this woman talk, I knew she was on to something. I said, this woman knows stuff. So my sister took me to see her at her booth. We had the talk in front of a big audience. And there's some things happened there that I could go into. I could tell you stories about her forever. But so we go to her booth, and my sister was very intent on having this woman do a reading on me. She was doing readings on people on the stage, where she would check out their energy field, check out their chakras, and tell them things. So she was desperate to have this woman do a reading on me. The woman was overwhelmed with all the people, and she was trying to get away from us. And she was trying to get out of the booth, and my sister was dragging me by one arm and trying to grab her with the other. And finally, the woman realized, you're not going to leave me alone until I do this, right? So she stopped in the middle of the hallway of this big convention center, and she looked me over and she kind of did like this in front of my body, and she stopped right around my waist area, what I now know is the second chakra, and she put her hands there and she looked at me and she goes, well, you can keep playing it safe if you want, but safe is a lot like death. And you seem like a nice guy. I don't know why you want to give up on life so soon, but I got to go. Now, I'm sure she said more than that, but that's what hit me. And so the next day I noticed something that was really surprising. The life that I had that I thought was fine, that I thought was really, I was contented with, nothing seemed to fit. It's like everything was refracted. The light was just changed just a little bit, and nothing seemed to match anymore. And I didn't fit in it. And I was working for a family business, and I was scheduled to be the heir of some fortune. I was going to inherit a lot of money. All I had to do was follow along the path and kiss the ring, and pretty much stay part of the tribe of this family business, and humor my maniacal aunt and my benign uncle, and I'd be set for life. But an odd thing happened with this. My life didn't fit. Now, my sister had signed up to go to this woman's school. She had a school up in Connecticut. I'm in Pennsylvania now, and that's where we were at the time. But I had no thoughts of this, but my sister was looking for this school, so she was all excited. She was going to this school. And I'm in the recovery movement. I'm a sober person, and my sponsor and I, if you know what that is, the guy that helped you along, have this thing we call the spiritual burp. That's when something's bothering you or you need an answer to a question. You just clear your mind, you take some deep breaths, you get yourself centered, and you just open your mouth and don't plan on saying anything. You just open your mouth, and whatever comes out is your truth. And we call that the spiritual burp because we're a couple of guys, and that's what we did. So I did the spiritual burp. I opened my mouth, and what came out of my mouth was, I want to go to that school that my sister's going to. And as soon as I said that, I said, no, I don't. My sponsor said, well, yes, you do. You've got to honor the spiritual birth. You know that's the rule. I'm like, but I don't want to go to this school. First of all, I don't have the money. It starts in 2 weeks. It's her thing. It's not my thing. I'm not. And he said, you're going. I said, I don't have the money. I can't do it. So my sponsor said this to me. And he's a big guy. He was like 6'5", and an old Irish guy from the hood, And he said, I'm going to give you half the money, and you're going to go. And you're going to complete all 4 years. It was a 4-year school. And if you don't go, and if you don't complete it, I'm going to come to your house and beat you up and take all your shit. And he could do that. He wasn't big and strong enough, and he was a sincere guy. He wouldn't have said something that he wouldn't have said that lightly. He meant it. He knew something I wasn't yet aware of, which was this was an important thing. So off I go in 2 weeks to this school. I didn't even know what I signed up for. I now know this is divine guidance. This is what happens. You get this turn in the road, and you know what Yogi Berra said, when you come to the fork in the road, take it. So I'm on my way to Connecticut on a Thursday night, not knowing what I was signing up for. Something else that happened that was really intriguing was I'm working in a printing business at the time, and so there was a woman that I used to know that was she was an artist that would just work freelance for us, and she would come and go for different projects. So she and I passed in the hallway just before I left for the school. And I wasn't disgruntled at the time. I was thinking, what am I doing? I'm spending this money. I'm going up here. I don't know what I'm doing. And this woman stopped me and she went, what's going on? Something big's happening. I'm like, nothing's going on. She goes, something has changed. She could sense it. And I said, well, I'm going to this stupid school. And she goes, that's it. This is big. And I thought she was nuts. Well, she is nuts, but that's another story. So I just thought that was a weird exchange. Like, she was super excited, and I'm super disgruntled. So we drive up. It was a miserable rainy night. We go to this hotel. I don't even know where we're going. The next day we're in school. I hadn't gotten any sleep. And as soon as I started to be in the class where they started to talk about these energy things, and I'm looking at the book, and I remember seeing this. We had this book called Hands of Light, written by a woman named Barbara Brennan, and she's showing different healing techniques and stuff, and I'm reading this, just kind of glancing over it, and I'm amazed. And my teacher came kind of over my shoulder, and he said to me, in a little while that's going to seem like nothing to you. And I thought that was amazing, because I was blown away. So the first weekend went really well, and one of the things that happened was the teacher did an energy healing on each student so you could feel what it was like. And when I had that done to me, it was amazing, much more powerful than the Reiki session that I'd had previous. And he asked me, "What did you think of that?" When I came up, and I said, "Well, I'll tell you what. I did a lot of dope in my days, but if I had found this before I found dope, I never would have done dope." And he said, "Well, the truth is, if you found this before you found dope, you never would have found this. Because you just got to go through your process, whatever it is." So I come back to work, and I come back to my desk, and again, my head is spinning because I don't know what the hell just happened to me. But I knew things had changed, and on my desk was a book and a cassette tape series. Yes, cassette tapes. It was a while ago. And it was written by a woman named Carolyn Mace. The book was called The Anatomy of the Spirit. And the cassette, collection was her talking about that book and going into deeper detail. It just so happened that was my first required reading for school that I just signed up for. And I called the woman up, the artist friend of mine. I'm like, "Where did you get this stuff? And what do you?" And she said, "I just thought that was something that might be of interest to you." That was kind of incredible. So that started me on the path of energy medicine, and the series of events for the 4 years in school was amazing. The thing that Dorothy, to answer the question more to your mentor, Dorothy was this monumental person to me. The thing that she knew that most people that teach energy medicine don't understand is that it's a matter of becoming something. It's not what you do, it's what you become. And she told us initially and several times during the course of our education, but mostly in the first year, like, this is not a 4-year college because of the amount of information you have to ingest. I can teach you the data, I can give you the information in less than 6 months. Less than that if you can read fast. But in 4 years, you're going to become something different, and that's what you need. You need to change on a cellular level. And you need to become your authentic self and own the whole of you. And then you're going to be something different. And a lot of your healing work, when you're a healer after you've graduated here, when you walk in a room, you've already done most of the healing because of the energy that you carry and what you are, who you are, the way you be. And the thing that you do, the techniques I'm going to teach you, those will flow in and out of who you be, which I didn't understand at the time. So she went on to be a great mentor, and it was very interesting because in the school she had a lot of cantankerous relationships with students. And she said to me one time, I think it was in my junior year or so, she had looked for, the school was growing and she needed teaching assistants. And the assistants, she always wanted people that had graduated, but they didn't have enough graduates that were interested. So she opened it up to a select number of students that were still in school, but that she felt could handle that. And as often happens in these kind of situations, chaos ensued because the people that didn't get invited got upset, and the people that got invited, some of them got upset, and all these people are upset with her. And she and I were talking one night after, because I'd drive up to Connecticut, and sometimes I'd go out to dinner afterwards before the drive home back to Pennsylvania. And she said, "What the hell is going on with this?" I said, "Well, it's simple. You screwed up because you didn't offer it to everybody. You offer it to everybody, and then you just pick who you want, and then you don't have as many ruffled feathers, but there's almost nothing you can do about it." And she said, "Yeah, because you know what happens? The first year when you're a freshman, I'm like a god or a goddess to you. And the second year, I'm usually your mother. And then the third year, I'm usually your pain in the ass boss or some guy that gave you a hard time. And by the senior year, hopefully I'm me, that you can actually see me." But she said, "The thing about you is you saw me as me the whole time. You never went through any of those phases." I said, "Well, I saw you when I first met you. You're a solid individual." She said, "No, you never projected any of that stuff on me." So she got me interested in teaching. And she asked me, "How come you didn't apply for the TA job? Everybody else is all up in arms. You've hardly said a peep about it." I said, "Well, I'm interested. I'm very interested. But I thought it would be good if I graduated first, mainly because of the travel. Just impractical." So I did. I wound up teaching there for a couple of years. I started as a TA. I was like 4th string TA. And I had 2 lead teachers and another TA that were all more experienced than me. And I was the guy who made the copies and got the things and, did the grunt work. And we used to do 6 weekends in the school, and then you did a lot of work in between via internet and whatnot. So the second weekend, Dorothy came to us and said, look, the freshman teacher and TA both had to leave the school suddenly because of different reasons. And she asked me if I'd like to be her TA. She was going to take over the teaching. I was a little confused. I said, like, don't you have like several people lined up in front of me? She goes, yeah, but they didn't want it. They turned it down. So 2 months into my TA career, I was the second teacher to the boss lady. And then we're in the middle of a class now. You've got a room full of people that are on massage tables practicing the energy work. And what often happens is stuff comes up. And so she left the room. She goes, look, they're all working. Just keep an eye on things, and I'll be back. I got to run a couple errands and do a couple things. I'll be back in a little bit. As soon as she leaves the room, I had 3 people go into meltdown for various different things. This one woman's only inhaling. She's not exhaling. The other woman starts screaming. This other woman starts crying uncontrollably. And everybody looks to me, and I'm a novice in all this, but I just thought, okay, you 2 go over and help the screaming lady. You 2 go over and help the crying lady. I'll deal with the one. If she doesn't start to breathe soon, we're going to have a real problem. And we just kind of, I don't even know what the hell I did, but we did what we did. And then we kind of calmed everything down, and we gathered together, and we were processing it all. And an hour and a half later, Dorothy comes strolling back in just as we're getting ready to break for lunch, and I was quite pissed. And once the students left, I was like, thanks a lot. You left me alone with all these people. I have all these people blowing up on me. She said, well, obviously you handled it. She told me something that I didn't understand fully at the time. She said, you already know pretty much how to handle your energy. You're very adept at being grounded and centered and present. And I didn't understand that. But that's what, so she taught me through example and through the lessons an enormous amount. But one of the things she taught me is that there's a certain thing that we all bring in that's kind of our gift. And I had classmates that were gifted at seeing energy. They could see auras, they could see past life stuff, they can see spheres in the 4th level of the field and all this other stuff. I didn't have that. And some people would hear guides talking to them and whatnot. And I didn't have that, and sometimes I was envious of that. But what she taught me was what I have is something that's sometimes unique. I'm very present, I'm very grounded, and I can be here. And whatever else we go through as a teacher or as a therapist with students or patients or clients, that I've seen as much more valuable than I ever realized. As far as other mentors, I've had a bunch of them, but she was the main one when it comes to this work. Now that I've become a myofascial release therapist, there's a guy named John Barnes that teaches that. And the thing I love about that is it's really the same thing. It's energy work, but you push on people's muscles. And so it doesn't mess with their paradigm. If they don't have a language for all this stuff, you don't talk chakras, you don't talk any kind of weird stuff. You just say, well, I can ease this by giving this time and patience rather than digging an elbow directly in all the time. And they can get that, but it's really the same thing. And John Barnes is a genius that way because he understands all the energetics, but he's found a way to bring it to people without having to take them too far off of their paradigm so that they don't have to freak out.
That's awesome. I really appreciate you sharing that.